Hi, I'm Tara Kate. I'm a bird artist and illustrator, and this is the Bird Artist's Cottage. If you've followed my vlog for a while, then you probably already know that I am illustrating a book on Oregon birds. And because I've been drawing many birds over many weeks, I thought it would be fun to share with you today my process for drawing birds. I want to tell you a little bit about what you're going to see in this video, and then of course I'll be back at the end to wrap up. First, I want to tell you what you're not going to see. This is not intended as a tutorial. This is simply a demo and me sharing my process. So if you're looking for a tutorial on drawing birds and you're interested in seeing one of those from me, then please do leave a comment. Another thing you're not going to see in this video is you're not going to see how I measure angles and proportions from the photo reference in order to get those down onto the page. You will occasionally see me placing the pencil against the paper where I'm moving an angle over that I've observed, but you're not going to see how I am measuring those. So I measure angles in a rather traditional way, as many artists do, by holding my hand out with usually my drawing instrument and measure that angle and then bring that back to my drawing substrate. I am occasionally in this demo using a proportional divider in order to move some of the proportions over. Because I've had to draw 40 something birds, it made measuring proportions a lot faster to use the proportional divider. You may occasionally glimpse the proportional divider as I'm holding it in my left hand, and I've moved some of the proportions over that way just because I have a lot of birds to draw and this makes it a lot faster. I do normally measure proportions in a more traditional manner of, measuring it out against the item and then, doing it the old-fashioned way, and I'm capable of doing that, but this certainly did make it a lot faster. If you have questions about using the proportional divider, I used to use these a lot when I was learning how to draw birds, and I found this to be a wonderful tool. So if you have questions about that, do let me know. I also want to say a little bit about the materials that I used for this demo. I'm drawing on this Strathmore drawing paper. I believe this demo was shot with the pad. I have also used the spiral bound version of this drawing paper. And for the kind of drawing that I'm doing here, this works really great. I would not use this paper for a very detailed drawing of the sorts that I have done in the past, but for this demo, you're going to be seeing me creating the outline, which will be used for a painting. So there's not any shading. I don't think I even filled in the pupil on the bird's eye. I may have, I don't recall. But you're not going to see me doing any shading. What you're going to see here is me getting down the outline, all of the proportions, and the major field marks so that I can then proceed to paint this bird in the illustration. A couple of other things is the materials that I used. I'm using this Craft Gear 500. It's a mechanical pencil, and this one is a 0.7 lead, which is a little heavier than I normally use, but I used this one so that you could see it better for the demo. I don't recall what the hardness of the lead is in this particular Craft Gear. It's probably an HB because that's typically what I normally use, but it could be a little bit softer. It did yield a nicely dark line so that you could see on camera. I also use these Tombow stick erasers. These are my favorites. This is, wow, I've been used so much that you can't read off what it is anymore. I believe this one was called, well, this is the Mono Zero. This is the itty bitty one, which is my favorite one for details. I don't remember what this is called. These are both by Tombow, and I really love the sizes on these. And of course, they're readily available in other sizes as well from other manufacturers. I know Pentel makes one as well. Let me see, was there anything else I wanted to say? All right, I think that's all I wanted to say in terms of preparing you for what you're going to see in this demo. Before I leave, I do want to acknowledge and say that I am thinking very much about our brothers and sisters in the Ukraine. And my prayers and thoughts are with you, and I stand in solidarity with the Ukraine people as they fight against a totalitarian government that is trying to invade and take over their sovereign country. So I want you and anyone who is watching to know that I stand with Ukraine. Okay, on that happy note, let's get on to the drawing. Before I start with the description of what you're seeing, I want to mention that there is an ASMR version of this demo with no voiceover and no intro or outro, and that's available on my Patreon, and the link is in the description below. So you may notice that I started off by drawing some shapes, and I frequently do that even though they are, I think, more of a way of loosening up and getting a mark on the page than something that I really use for proportion. I think it's a way of me translating the shapes that I am observing on the photo reference and then translating that to the page, and it's kind of a habit. You'll also see that I am placing the pencil against the page at an angle as I'm translating these angles over that I've measured, and of course I've edited out all of that angle measuring because I was putting my arm across in front of the page, and I thought that would be kind of annoying for you to watch. You'll also notice that I'm a bit of a hairy line drawer. I do a lot of sketchy lines and a lot of reinforcing of lines, although here I've turned the drawing board at an angle in order to get a smoother line around the top of the head. This bird is a varied thrush. Varied thrushes are in the same bird family as American robins, so they are a true thrush. They are a quintessential Pacific Northwest bird. We have them in our old growth forests here in the Pacific Northwest as breeders. Their range is quite extensive along the West Coast, from Alaska all the way down into the northern part of Baja California. And they spend their breeding life, that is during the summer, in old growth forests. Puppy, what are you doing? Finch. Sorry. The puppy found the trash can. Okay, where were we? They spend their breeding life in the old growth forests, and so they are very much considered to be an old growth forest species, much like the northern spotted owl that we also have here in Oregon. So you saw me put in the eye and make the measurements for where that eye was located, and I kind of blocked out that position and then drew that in. First the outline and then the pupil. And now I'm putting in the field marks that are the major distinguishing characteristics that I'll need to have laid out for the painting. This is really very much an outline. As I said in the introduction, there's not any shading for this particular demo because I'll be transferring this outline to watercolor paper in order to paint this bird. And as I've done for many of the species that I'm illustrating for the book, there's a very minimal background for this painting. I don't even know if I'll put any colored background behind the bird or not. These are intended to be mostly spot illustrations, and so they're going to be surrounded by text and maps and graphs, and so the birds are there to articulate for the viewer what the species looks like, but the illustrations are really not the star of the show. It's more about the data and the findings of the scientific group that did this work. So just to give you a little bit of background, all of these birds are illustrated for a book for a project that was called Oregon 2020. It was a 10-year-long research initiative in which a team from Oregon State University went out and surveyed birds over the entire state of Oregon in a very, very detailed manner. And what they're doing now is going through all of the analysis of their data to generate maps and a benchmark of the abundance and distribution of all of the species that occur in our state. So that's a little over 300 bird species, and they will have data on how many there are of each species, or estimates of population sizes for each species, along with information about where these species occur. And this information will then be a benchmark for future scientists. All right, well, I hope that you enjoyed that demo and learned a little bit about how I draw birds. If you have questions about how I do what I do, or why I do certain things that I do, or how I learned, please do feel free to put those in the comments below. I also invite you to join my online community. It's free, and there's a link in the description below. You'll get updates from me, as well as invitations to live events when I do those online, and occasionally small free gifts like phone wallpaper and good stuff like that. The link is in the description below. If you'd like to learn more about the Loudon drawing board that I used, you can see the review in this video. Thanks for watching. See you again next time.